You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk. And obviously I have to start with Wild Card Weekend. I'm going to go chronologically through the games, starting with the first game and ending with the last. That means I'm going to start with Colts-Bills. Really an incredibly exciting game. Back and forth affair. Bills up by 7 going into the fourth quarter. They score a touchdown right away in the fourth quarter to go up by 14. The Colts come storming back. You couldn't take your eyes off that game. That game may have been the best game of the 6. There were 27 points scored by both teams in the first 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, both teams combined for 24 points. There is something to be said about coming up big in the fourth quarter. Now, make no mistake about this. The Colts had a much better first half than the Bills. The Colts just kept grinding out these drives. At the end of the first half, the Colts had an over 9-minute edge on the Bills in time of possession. It was methodical. It was fantastically done. What's the best way to stop Josh Allen? By keeping him on the sidelines. I mean, you can make a very strong argument that the Colts deserve to win this game. The Colts converted over 50% of their third down attempts. The Bills converted less than 25%. The Colts had more rushing yards. They had more passing yards. They ended up winning the total time of possession. But they did shoot themselves in the foot in this game. DeForest Buckner was 100% right there. He said that in the post-game press conference. He was 100% right. The Colts had 5 drives in the first half, not counting the last drive, where all they did was take a knee. In those 5 drives that all crossed midfield, they only had 10 points. Give the Bills' defense a ton of credit for stepping up and not breaking. There's logic to bend, don't break. I thought the secondary was great in this game for the Bills. Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Levi Wallace, Josh Norman, they all stepped up and played really well. Nothing epitomized that more than when the Colts had first and goal at the Bills' 4. The Colts are up 10-7 at this point. A touchdown puts them up 17-7. There were about 3 minutes left in the first half. If you can be up by 10 in Buffalo at the half, you've got a good chance of winning this game. This is how the next 4 plays went. Gain of 2. Gain of 1 on a stupid direct snap to Nyheim Hines with Phillip Rivers playing wide receiver. I don't understand why teams need to get so cute in goal-to-go situations. Your quarterback got you there. Let him finish it. Of course it didn't work. Everyone watching knew Hines was going to run that ball. It was really, really stupid. 3rd and goal at the 1. Jonathan Taylor gets knocked backwards for -3 yards. And then it's decision time. It's 4th and goal at the 4. You're right back where you started from. Do you go for it? Or do you take the points? Frank Reich decided to go for it. And I'll be honest with you. It didn't bother me. You had 1st and goal at the 4. A field goal doesn't work for me. You've got Josh Allen, an MVP candidate, ready to lead his team on a 2-minute drill. Where would you rather he start that from? His own 4-yard line or his own 25-yard line? A touchdown puts you up 17-7. That's huge. It's a 2-score game. You're basically guaranteed to go into the locker room with the lead. Some people got on Frank Reich for going for it there. I thought it was the right decision. And it was kind of interesting, Frank Reich coaching against the Bills, his old team. There's a nice sense of poetry there. I mean, the play worked. The crossing route by Pittman, he was open. If Rivers puts that ball in a better spot, it wasn't a terrible throw. It was off Pittman's fingertips. But if he could have put it a little more in on Pittman, it's a touchdown. The Bills had a really tough time with those crossers all game. Reich went to the well again. It did work. Rivers just didn't make as good a throw as he should have. But even then, under 2 minutes left, Allen starting at his own 4. There's no possible way that he's going to drive 96 yards down the field, right? Yeah, he did. He put the Bills up 1 at the half, and the Colts would never reclaim the lead. Allen was fantastic. 26 for 35 for 324 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 11 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown. He was doing everything out there. Diggs was great. 6 catches for 128 yards and a touchdown. Gabriel Davis, 4 catches for 85 yards. Cole Beasley gutted it out to play well. 7 catches for 57 yards. But the best thing that Allen did in this game won't show up in the box score. It's 4th and 3 from the Colts 26. Allen's lining up to take the snap. The play clock is running down. What's going to happen? Is he going to take the delay of game? Is he going to call a timeout? Is he going to snap this ball? You don't know if you're a Colts defender, but for God's sake, don't jump off sides. What does Kemoko Turay do? He jumps off sides. I don't think you saw him for the rest of the game. It kept the drive alive. Touchdown Bills. Great job by Allen on the hard count. Great job by the Bills in knowing the situation. I feel bad for Turay. He's a good kid. Local kid. Went to Rutgers. But he's got to do better than that. But there is one more thing to talk about, and it's the kind of thing that if the Colts had won this game, you'd have people screaming bloody murder over. 4th and 10 at the Colts 37 with 50 seconds left to go in the game. Do or die for the Colts right here. Rivers throws a strike to Zach Pascal. Good throw, good catch. Then the Bills are able to jar the ball loose. Great job by Matt Milano and Jordan Poyer. The Bills get the loose ball, and that's it. Game over, right? No! Somehow Pascal was ruled down by contact. I've watched that play probably 100 times. I'm telling you, there's no way he was down when Milano and Poyer first made contact with him. That was a fumble. I mean, what you've got to do if you're Pascal in that spot is just stay down. Don't try to make a play. You kept the game alive. You don't need to be a hero. Stay down. Let someone touch you. Keep the ball firmly in your grasp. And that's it. Instead, you try to make a play, and you fumble the ball. Now, somehow the referees determined that Pascal was down by contact. I just don't understand it. I don't understand how you can reach that conclusion. In 1999, the Music City Miracle, Frank Wycheck threw the forward pass to Kevin Dyson that was ruled a lateral. Touchdown Titans. Bills lose. This was almost as bad as that. At least the Bills won. When you take everything into totality, did the Colts deserve to win this game? You'd have a tough time arguing that they weren't the better team in this game. But after the Pascal catch, that was somehow ruled to be down by contact, the Bills deserved to win. It was a terrible call. Like I said, I have no idea how the referees at that game came to that conclusion. See, here's the issue that the NFL has. You've got the rules analysts, Gene Steratore, Mike Pereira, and Terry McCauley, all saying one thing. Then the referees working the game say the other thing. There really isn't too much room in sports for judgment calls among referees. I mean, you've got balls and strikes in baseball and targeting in college football. That's pretty much it. But anything else? Down by contact? Did he make a football move? Did his knee hit the ground? Anything like that, that's not a judgment call. That's empirical. And you can't have one referee say one thing and then another referee tell America that that was the wrong call. That's just not going to work. Like I said, at the end of the day, the Bills got the win. That's all that matters. And I'll say this. What does this mean for Phillip Rivers going forward? It's another year where Rivers just can't get it done in the playoffs. Is he going to give it one more go with the Colts? Is he going to look to go somewhere else? Or is this it? Look, I understand that Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer. 8-time Pro Bowler. 5th most passing yards, touchdowns, and completed passes in NFL history. You can't leave him out of the Hall of Fame. But for God's sake, can this guy get it done in the playoffs once? Please? I understand it wasn't his fault. He played well. But he's now 5-7 in the playoffs. He's never won multiple games in the playoffs except in 2007. Again, what happened on Saturday wasn't his fault. Rivers completed 27 of his 46 passes for 309 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was fine. But the Colts still lost. They lost a game that you can make a very strong argument they should have won. Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer. But let's make him wait for a while. There are a lot of people that we need to put in first. Moving on now to Rams Seahawks. A game that just defies all logic. Jared Goff tries like hell to convince Sean McVay to start him. Goff can't go. So the Rams have to turn to John Wolford. John Wolford versus Russell Wilson. Give me Russell Wilson. Wolford doesn't even make it out of the first quarter. Because Jamal Adams made an incredibly dirty play to knock Wolford out of the game. That is a classless move by Jamal Adams. Nothing made me happier on Wildcard Weekend than to see Jamal Adams lose. As Joe Caporoso said with the Simpsons meme of Homer and Bart, you don't win games with safeties, you don't win games with safeties, you don't win games with safeties. That was funny. So Goff comes in, not at 100%. Aaron Donald is out for most of the second half. He's the best defensive player in football. Cooper Kupp isn't at 100%. The Seahawks are going to walk all over the Rams, right? Somehow, someway, Sean McVay and Brandon Staley are able to coach this team to victory. McVay, with some excellent play calls for Cam Akers. Akers looked like Marshall Faulk out there. 28 carries for 131 yards and a touchdown. The offensive line was fantastic. Brandon Staley utterly confused Russell Wilson. Wilson looked anemic. Completed just 11 of his 27 passes for 174 yards. He was sacked 5 times. He also threw a pick 6 on a wide receiver screen. Great play by Darius Williams. The Rams were able to neutralize DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Metcalf only had one big play, the 51-yard touchdown. That was it. Other than that, he was really ineffective. Lockett was ineffective. This was a dreadful game by the Seattle Seahawks. A lot of people were getting on Pete Carroll for this game. I get it. Pete Carroll's still a great coach, but the reality is, there's no excuse for this loss. My buddy Drew said it best. He's a Seahawks fan. You can't win a game you don't show up to. He was right. He was 100% right. Besides Wilson extending the play and throwing that great touchdown to Metcalf, that was the 51-yarder, the Seahawks had nothing. The Seahawks only had 11 first downs. They had less than 300 total yards. They were just 2 for 14 on third down. The Seahawks played dreadfully. It was the worst game they've had all year. And that's counting the Giants game. Maybe it's not so impressive that the Giants beat the Seahawks after all. I mean, there's one more element to this, and it pertains to the Jets. No coach helped his head coaching stock more over the weekend than Brandon Staley. That performance yesterday by the Rams defense, guys like Darius Williams, Jordan Fuller, and Troy Reader stepping up. No names coming out of the woodwork to have fantastic games. You combine that with how bad the Seahawks were. Staley has definitely moved up on my list of who I want as next Jets head coach. I'm not saying he's number one or anything, but I definitely wouldn't be upset if he got the job. I just don't like his lack of experience. But hey, if you can get the job done, I don't care how old you are. Moving on now to Buccaneers, Washington. A game that you probably had a tough time getting into when you saw that it was going to be Taylor Heineke making the start over Alex Smith. But no, Heineke played really well. This guy gave Washington every chance to win this game. He completed 26 of his 44 passes for 306 yards. He threw an interception that wasn't his fault. It was a deflected pass by one of Washington's receivers. He threw a touchdown pass to Steven Sims, and he also ran for a touchdown. He was Washington's leading rusher. Let me tell you, we've seen quarterbacks parlay one really good game into massive contracts. Scott Mitchell and Matt Flynn, just to name two. It wouldn't surprise me if Heineke got a big contract in the offseason. I'm not saying like a Mahomes contract or a Rodgers contract or anything like that. But there are a lot of teams out there that could need a quarterback. given how Heineke played on Saturday, I could very easily see one of those teams pointing to him as a guy who they're going to give a chance to. Hey, we saw what he could do with Washington. This guy has talent. We're going to give him a shot. Let's see what he can do. Stranger things have happened. As for the Buccaneers, they weren't great in this game. Make no mistake about it, Taylor Heineke had a real chance to beat Tom Brady. After 3, the Buccaneers were only up by 2. Then Sukup kicked the field goal to make it 21-16 Buccaneers. And this is where the inexperience comes into play. The last thing on earth you can do is give up the ball quickly, whether it's a turnover or a 3-and-out. After the Buccaneers made it 21-16, Heineke went 3-and-out. He only gained 1 yard. You took no time off the clock. The Buccaneers took over at their own 31. Then Brady scored. After that, you had to know that Washington wasn't going to come back. Now, they did make it 28-23. But the Buccaneers were able to drive down the field again and go up 8. The turning point of this game was the 3-and-out on Washington's first drive of the fourth quarter. I'm not knocking Heineke. Like I said, he played really well. A lot of people have a very high opinion of Todd Bowles. Hopefully, that game on Saturday shows people that this guy is just clueless. The Buccaneers were not great in this game. They were very beatable. They did leave you wanting more. It doesn't show up in the box score, but if you watch the game, they weren't overly impressive. The reality is, Taylor Heineke nearly beat Tom Brady in a playoff game. And there is a real question as to whether he should be considered as Washington's quarterback of the future. You can make a very strong argument that Heineke deserves a shot next year. Moving on now to Sunday's games. I'll start with Ravens-Titans. And you've got to give Lamar Jackson a ton of credit. After 1, the Titans are up 10-0. Everyone on earth is saying it's another postseason collapse for Lamar Jackson. This guy just can't get it done in the playoffs. It's a repeat performance from last year. I promise you, that was rattling around in Jackson's head. The guy threw an interception that led to a Titans field goal. That first quarter was dreadful for him, but give him credit. He rallied the troops. He had a very short memory. Whatever euphemism you want to use, Jackson stepped up and led the Ravens to victory. After the first quarter, the Ravens outscored the Titans 20-3. Jackson was great in this game. Don't let his passing stats fool you. I understand they don't look good. Completed 17 of his 24 passes. That's good, but only for 179 yards, no passing touchdowns, the interception, and he was sacked 5 times. I get that. Here's the thing, though. The reason Jackson had 5 sacks and why he's vulnerable to getting sacked a lot is because he holds onto the ball for a really long time. Now, why does he do that? Because he's a running quarterback. He's not one of those guys who, if it's not there, he's going to chuck it out of bounds. He has the ability to make something out of nothing. You saw it in the touchdown run yesterday. The epic 48-yarder just before the half. That was incredible. It was 3rd and 9. 3rd and 9, you see the quarterback run for it. He's not getting 9 yards. Oh my God, he got 9 yards. Wait, he's still going? There's no way he gets in the end zone, right? Oh my God, he got in the end zone. Yeah, that's normal for Lamar Jackson. The reality is, it's okay if he's not great with his arm. There are better throwers in the NFL than Lamar Jackson. Sam Darnold may be a better thrower than Lamar Jackson. But you shouldn't care. You know why? Because Lamar Jackson can do things with his legs that very few quarterbacks in NFL history could do. You've got Michael Vick, and that may be it. In fact, Jackson may be better than Vick. Did he exercise all of his playoff demons? The answer is no. It's nice to get the monkey off your back. Yes, I can win in the playoffs. I beat a really good Titans team on the road with fans in the stands. That's a good win. But if he loses to the Bills on Saturday night, you're going to get the Phillip Rivers comps. See, look, this guy can win a playoff game here and there, but you'll never win a Super Bowl with him. For Jackson to fully exercise those demons, he needs to win a Super Bowl. Can that happen? Anything's possible. We're 11 days into 2021. And already we've had an insane amount of, for lack of a better word, craziness. Do I think the Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl this year? Look, I picked them before this season. I'd be lying to you if I said I was confident about that pick. But once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. As for the Titans, what did I tell you about this game? If the Titans were going to win, they needed to rely on their offense. They needed Tannehill to play great. They needed Derrick Henry to play great. They needed A.J. Brown to be great. They needed Corey Davis to be great. The reality is, all of those guys sucked. Tannehill completed 18 of his 26 passes for 165 yards. That's it. Derrick Henry had 18 carries for 40 yards. He didn't even get a first down. His longest run was for 8 yards. A.J. Brown was solid. Give him credit. 6 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown. He was fine. Corey Davis didn't get a catch. You know, everyone pointed to the Jackson interception as this really terrible throw. What are you doing? Blah, 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 all that stuff. The Tannehill interception was worse. 2 minutes left. You're at your own 37. You have a real chance to win this game. If you're Tannehill, you just ran up the middle for 2 yards. You get the first down. Like I said, something that Henry didn't do. You got a chance to win this thing. Then you throw an interception to Marcus Peters. That's worse than the Jackson pick. It just is. Look at the game situation. Was the throw as bad? Probably not. But you can't afford an interception in that spot. If you had told me that a quarterback in this game was going to throw a big interception late in the fourth quarter, I'd have said, yeah, that sounds like something Lamar Jackson can do. I could see that happening. It was Ryan Tannehill. Bad game by the Titans. You've got to give Don Martindale a ton of credit. The Titans only had 209 total yards. Fantastic job by Wink. Fantastic job by guys like Calais Campbell, Matthew Judon, Pernell McPhee, Chuck Clark, Deshaun Elliott. This was a big win for the Ravens. Moving on now to Bears Saints, the Nickelodeon game. Let me tell you, if I was still a little kid, I'd watch the Nickelodeon telecast. I saw some of the clips of what they were doing. It was funny. I'd have loved it if I was a little kid. I loved Nickelodeon growing up. I liked Cartoon Network. I wasn't a big Disney lover. Like, the Disney movies I liked, but the Disney Channel? No, that I didn't like. I mean, I saw some people getting on it. Oh, it's gimmicky. What are you doing? This isn't what football's about. The reality is there are a lot of little kids who watch that game and wanted the best of both worlds. They want to watch the game, but they also want to be a kid and have that end of things. They got it. The Slime Zone was hysterical. SpongeBob in the space between the uprights, the bright colors. I thought it was very well done. And if you don't like it, don't watch it. Unless you have little kids at home, no one was making you watch that. But when you look at the actual game, the Bears played like little kids. Mitchell Trubisky was dreadful. Threw for less than 200 yards. He didn't throw a touchdown until the last play of the game. I mean, give him credit. It was a good throw, good catch by Jimmy Graham. But he was anemic up until that point. The Bears need to find a new quarterback. It's just that simple. It's not Trubisky. You're not going to win anything with Mitchell Trubisky. Maybe you'll get to the playoffs, but you're not going to make any noise when you get there. The Bears only had 11 first downs. Out of their 10 plays on third down, they only got a first down once. You know when that happened? The same drive that Trubisky threw the touchdown. I actually saw some people before this game saying, hey, you know what? Trubisky played well down the stretch. He's putting it all together. Maybe he's not Mahomes, maybe he's not Watson, but he's turning into a solid quarterback. No, he's not. Mitchell Trubisky is a bust. The Bears need to move on from him. Next year, I don't know who the Bears are going to get, but I promise you, their quarterback of the future is not on their roster right now. It is not Trubisky. It is not Nick Foles. It is not Tyler Bray. With the 20th overall pick, the Bears need to draft a quarterback. It does bring up an interesting question, though. What's going to happen with Matt Nagy? Does Nagy survive this? I don't know. I mean, look, I like Matt Nagy. I don't know who should get the credit for the Bears turning it on the last quarter of the season. They went 3-1 in their last 4. That got them into the playoffs. Matt Nagy has made the playoffs twice with Mitchell Trubisky as his quarterback. That's impressive. Imagine what he could do with a real quarterback. I understand that at the end of the season, Nagy wasn't calling plays. It was Bill Lazor. I understand that's a bad look for Nagy. But he's still the head coach. And he's had play calling success before. No, I don't think I'd move on from Nagy if I was the Bears. I'd move on from Trubisky. But I'd give Nagy another chance. As for the Saints, give them credit. They played well. Breeze was solid, not great, not terrible. You can tell he's nearing the end of the line, but he still got the job done. Before the game, you heard that Alvin Kamara was going to play, and everyone was talking about the Three Musketeers getting back together, Breeze, Kamara, and Thomas. Maybe they weren't as good as Athos, Porthos, and Aramis, but they were solid. Kamara nearly had 100 rushing yards. Thomas had 5 catches for 73 yards and a touchdown. Deontay Harris played the role of D'Artagnan. 7 catches for 83 yards. Defensively, though, is where the Saints shined. Cameron Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore, Marcus Davenport, David Onyemata, Alex Anzalone, Janoris Jenkins, Malcolm Brown, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson all played really, really well. It's going to be interesting on Sunday, Buccaneers-Saints. The last game on the docket. Neither team played great over the weekend. Let's see who's going to step up. The last game to talk about is by far and away the best game that happened over the weekend. I understand you disagree with that if you're a Steelers fan, but if you're an NFL fan, especially a fan of a lousy team like I am, it was very easy to get behind this game. It was very easy to get behind the Browns. Their first playoff appearance since 2002. They were looking for their first playoff win since January 1st, 1995. They were looking for their first road playoff win since December 28th, 1969. To put all that into perspective, Baker Mayfield was born in April of 95. So, in Baker Mayfield's entire lifetime, the Browns have never won a playoff game. But Mayfield stepped up. The Browns stepped up. No Kevin Stefanski. No Joel Bitonio. No Denzel Ward. The Browns only practiced once in the last 2 weeks. They had lost 17 straight at Heinz Field. Even though they beat the Steelers to get into the playoffs, no one gave them a snowball's chance in hell of winning this game. I thought the Steelers were going to win by 3 touchdowns. But the Browns came out like bats out of hell. I mean, for God's sake, the first play from scrimmage, Roethlisberger can't handle the snap. And next thing you know, Carl Joseph recovers the ball in the end zone. Next drive, Roethlisberger throws an interception to MJ Stewart. 3 plays later, touchdown Jarvis Landry. The next Browns drive, touchdown Kareem Hunt. The Browns won the line of scrimmage all throughout this game. They did a masterful job on the offensive line and the defensive line. Give them a ton of credit. By the time the first quarter was over, 28-0 Browns, Roethlisberger has turned the ball over thrice. Right then and there, the game was over. Or so you thought. I mean, any other team, except the Cleveland Browns, you'd think, yeah, okay, this game is over. But this is the Browns we're talking about. Even though there were valid calls for Mason Rudolph to come in, Roethlisberger stayed in. And look, after the first quarter, the Steelers outscored the Browns 37-20. You've got to give Roethlisberger credit for coming back in this game. I understand that the Steelers never had the lead, but every time you thought you could turn the game off safely, the Steelers kept coming back. Their first drive in the third quarter, 35-16. Then they force a 3-and-out. Then they make it 35-23. 42-23, 42-29. Even when the Browns made it 48-29, you still had to keep that game on because Roethlisberger made it 48-37. Roethlisberger had a stat line that I thought I'd only see in Madden. He completed 47 of his 68 passes. The 68 pass attempts is a record. 501 passing yards. And the Steelers still lose. Unbelievable. 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. It's not every day you complete 47 passes for 501 yards and 4 touchdowns, and you still lose. Well, the Steelers found a way to do it. You know, all those people who said the Steelers were overrated, they were right. I was saying they weren't. I was wrong. The Steelers played like garbage in this game. Look, I love Baker Mayfield. I really like Nick Chubb. I like Kareem Hunt. I like Jarvis Landry. I like Austin Hooper. This was a really good Browns team. But, given all the COVID circumstances, you can't allow the Browns to do what they did. You can't allow Baker Mayfield to throw 3 touchdowns. You can't allow Jarvis Landry to go off. You can't allow Kareem Hunt to have 2 rushing touchdowns. The Steelers played like garbage. I don't care that they scored 37 points. I don't care that this was a scorigami. No head coach. No good left guard. No great corner. That's what you're going up against, and you still lose. That's inexcusable. Look, the Browns are good. There's no question. The Chiefs are going to have a tough time with them on Sunday. But it never should have gotten to that point. The Steelers should have run roughshod over the Browns. Instead, Baker Mayfield did what a lot of people said he couldn't. Win a playoff game. Make no mistake about it. This isn't the Browns of old. This is a really good Browns team that's gonna give the Chiefs a hard time on Sunday. I'm not saying that the Browns are gonna win, but it's gonna be a really, really good game. Moving on now to the stunner of all stunners. I understand that there was speculation of this beforehand, but I thought it was all nonsense. I didn't think there was a way on this earth that Doug Peterson would be fired. But he was. The Eagles are now looking for a new head coach. So evidently all the goodwill that you engender from winning a Super Bowl expires after 3 years. Okay, that's good to know. Look, I'm not saying that Doug Peterson didn't have his issues. Carson Wentz had a regression of epic proportions. In 2019, he completed just under 64% of his passes for 4,039 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. This year, he completed just under 57.5% of his passes for 2,620 yards and only 16 touchdowns. He also led the NFL in interceptions with 15, the most he's ever thrown in a season. He threw 21 from 2017 to 2019. 15 in 2020. Way to go. He got sacked 50 times. More than he's ever been sacked before in a season. You want to tell me that Peterson waited too long to put Jalen Hurts in? You can make that argument, but you've got to realize Jalen Hurts didn't set the world on fire. It's not like he was leaving Randall Cunningham on the bench. Jalen Hurts wasn't great in his 4 starts. Completed just 52% of his passes. Was sacked 13 times. 6 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Look, the 1,061 passing yards in 4 starts is really impressive. That's over 250 yards a game. Job well done there. But Hurts isn't great. Are the Eagles going to roll with Hurts next year as their starter? Probably. But it wouldn't surprise me if Hurts crashed and burned next year. And 2 years from now, they were looking for a new starter. Also, Peterson didn't want to pull Carson Wentz, the guy who got a huge contract and just 3 years ago was an MVP candidate. Peterson made mistakes, there's no question. The Eagles went 4-11-1. They were last in the NFC East. I understand that. Doug Peterson isn't a perfect head coach. But I can't endorse firing him unless he was solely responsible for putting Nate Sudfeld in. Look, I thought that was done with Howie Roseman's blessing. I thought that was done with Jeffrey Lurie's blessing. If it wasn't, then yes, you fire Doug Peterson. But here's the thing. If that was true, if Peterson did that unilaterally, I don't think they would have waited a week to can him. Here's what I believe happened. It was toxic in Philly for a long time. No question. After winning the Super Bowl, the Eagles only won one playoff game. And they came very close to losing that game. That was the double doink game. 2017 was a magical season. But it was all downhill from there. Wentz got the big contract. Couldn't stay healthy. Had a dreadful season. Howie Roseman put together a roster that is in cap hell right now, did nothing to reinforce the offensive line, did nothing to give Wentz any wide receivers, and you've got a head coach who no one's going to be mistaking for Bill Belichick anytime soon. The situation in Philly was toxic. Peterson and Roseman were jockeying for position among who Jeffrey Lurie is really gonna listen to. Ultimately, Roseman won out. I believe that he was the one who wanted to put Sudfeld in, not Peterson. The reason I think that is because Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network tweeted, and I quote, "This is what it boiled down to. Peterson was sick of people telling him what to do." That tells me that Peterson was told by Roseman and or Lurie to put in Sudfeld. For the fourth quarter, we want to put in Nate Sudfeld. We don't want to win this game. Is it possible that it truly was a joint decision by Peterson and Roseman? Or Peterson acted unilaterally? Yes. But there's no way you could fire a coach after you signed off on tanking the last quarter of your season. And the unilateral thing, it wouldn't have taken this long to fire him if that was true. I do believe that Peterson was ticked off. Throughout the season, I think he was ticked off. I think he was ticked off that Roseman had Lurie's ear more than he did. The Eagles went 4-11-1. That is a dreadful season under any circumstance. And you combine all that with the fact that Peterson and Wentz don't get along, Peterson's ruffling some feathers. I guess the situation was untenable. And I guess my adage still holds true. I used to say that players and coaches don't tank, front offices do. I couldn't say that after the Washington-Philly game. I thought Doug Peterson signed off on this. I don't think that anymore. Rappaport's tweet indicates to me that Peterson didn't sign off on it. He was doing what his boss told him to do. And he was fired because of it. That is a dreadful job by Howie Roseman. If you wanted to get rid of Peterson, I can understand it, but you've got to blow things up. You have to get rid of Roseman too. And if you're Lurie, just come out and say, these guys pitched this idea to me. I supported it because they're better football minds than me. After reflecting on it, I realize now it was wrong. And we're never going to let it happen again. That's the right way to do this. You don't keep Roseman around and fire Peterson. Either keep them both or get rid of them both. Now, the obvious connection that people are making is Doug Peterson to the Jets. Joe Douglas worked with Peterson for a long time. They won a Super Bowl together. You've got to think that Peterson's gonna get an interview. In fact, he may be the favorite as of right now. A lot of Jets fans are against that. I can't tell you how many Jets fans I've seen say there is no way Doug Peterson should be the next head coach of the Jets. I don't get why. This guy has a career record of 42, 37, and 1. This guy very recently won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. This guy usually puts together strong offenses. Last year was a horror show. There's no question. But I do believe that that was more Howie Roseman than Peterson. And I had said that before. The terrible wide receivers and the failure to upgrade the offensive line, that's on Roseman. That's not on Peterson. I'd have no problem with Doug Peterson as the next head coach of the Jets. Now, he's going to need to come out if he gets the job and say, the decision to put in Sudfeld was not my decision. Go scorched earth on the Eagles. You can't say that was my decision or give a Sherman-esque answer. The only way that is going to work, because you are going to be asked about it if you're Peterson, is to say, I was told by Howie Roseman, my boss, to do this. I didn't support it, but my boss told me to do it, and I did it. And then Joe Douglas can say, I'm not going to tell Doug Peterson how to coach this team. That's fine. You know, I got news for you. Everyone's allowed a bad year. Bill Belichick just had a bad year. You're telling me you wouldn't take him as the next head coach of the Jets? Matt Rule just had a bad year. I can't tell you how many people I've heard sing his praises. Hell, they want his offensive coordinator. John Gruden didn't have a great season. You're telling me you wouldn't take John Gruden? Peterson will be a fine head coach if he gets the Jets job. He's not my first choice. He's 6th. If you go back to the Jets off-season preview, I gave a list of who I want as my A1 guys to be the next head coach of the Jets. I'm putting Peterson 6th now. Behind Saleh, ahead of Mullen. In a perfect world, Doug Peterson wouldn't be the next head coach of the Jets. But I do think it would be a good hire. It wouldn't be as bad as, say, Aaron Glenn or Joe Brady. And I'm telling you, Peterson's gonna get an interview. And he may be the odds-on favorite to get the job right now. Alright, now I'll give you some college football Valk talk. The CFP National Championship Game is tonight. And it's a game that really hasn't gotten a lot of buzz. Now, I think there are a few reasons for that. I think people are tired of seeing Alabama in the national title game. Also, college football is going to take a back seat to the NFL always. And when you have 6 NFL playoff games on Saturday and Sunday, that's all people are going to care about. No one's going to care about what happens on Monday. Also, I think things outside of the sports world have distracted people. The coronavirus is still out there. We're still recovering from the insurrection that happened at the Capitol building. So look, is this game not getting a lot of publicity? The answer is yes. It's not the NCAA's fault. Things happened that were just out of their control. But make no mistake about it, everyone is going to be watching this game. There's nothing else on. So tomorrow, all we're going to talk about is the CFP National Title Game. If Alabama is going to win this game, they're going to need to play a solid, well-rounded game. Mac Jones is going to need to go off again. It got lost because of what Justin Fields did in the Sugar Bowl, but Jones tore up Notre Dame. He completed 25 of his 30 passes for just under 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. Jones is going to need to keep that up. Najee Harris is going to need to keep his great play up. Against the Irish, he had 15 carries for 125 yards. Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner. He's going to need to find a way to get loose from Shaun Wade. That's going to be a matchup that I'm going to be watching like a hawk. I understand that Smith was fantastic in the Rose Bowl, 7 catches for 130 yards and 3 touchdowns, but Notre Dame doesn't have anyone like Shaun Wade. Wade is going to make Smith work. And defensively, they're going to need guys like Will Anderson, Christian Barmore, Chris Allen, Christian Harris, Malachi Moore, and Daniel Wright to all step up. They need to play a well-rounded game. That's how they've gotten here. They haven't won too many 55-52 games. And they haven't won any 7-0 games. They win games by playing great offensively and great defensively. Alabama can't afford to overlook one for the other. Hey, we didn't get him on offense, but we'll get him on defense. Hey, we didn't get him on defense, but we'll get him on offense. No. If you're Nick Saban, you've got to pay equal attention to both. As for OSU, this is all on Justin Fields. This got lost in the Sugar Bowl because Fields was so incredible, but OSU's defense didn't play well. Their running defense was good. Travis Etienne couldn't get anything going. but Trevor Lawrence still threw for 400 yards. He still threw 2 touchdowns. Cornell Powell still went off. And this is an OSU team that's banged up. Guys like Master Teague, Haskell Garrett, Ryan Smith, Paris Johnson. All those guys play meaningful roles for the Buckeyes, and they're all questionable. I'm not saying they're not going to play, but if they do play, they're not going to be at 100%. And even Fields is a little banged up. He played hurt through some of the Sugar Bowl. And he still had one of the greatest bowl games in college football history. Absolutely incredible. It's all on Justin Fields here. Everyone else on the Buckeyes is irrelevant. OSU will only go as far as Justin Fields will take them. Now, before the Sugar Bowl, the knock on him was that he can't win a big game. He won a big game. He beat a really, really good Clemson team. He's going to need to do it again versus one of the best defenses in the nation. And make no mistake about it, Alabama's defense is better than Clemson's defense. Now, I saw what Fields did in the Sugar Bowl, so I can't say that he's not going to have another great game. Can you expect 6 touchdowns again? Absolutely not. But I do think Fields will throw for about 300 yards. I do think he'll complete about 70% of his passes. I do think he'll keep this game close. And make no mistake about it, if Fields wins this game, if he balls out and leads the Buckeyes to victory, that gap between him and Trevor Lawrence for who's going to be the first overall pick is going to keep narrowing. It's narrower now than it ever was before. Lawrence is still number 1. And he'll be number 1 after this game. But that gap is going to continue to narrow. And if the Jaguars hire Urban Meyer, or even if they don't, and the Jets make a Godfather offer to move up 1 spot so they can take Lawrence, the Jaguars will do it if Fields balls out. I promise you. The dream of seeing Trevor Lawrence in green and white isn't dead. The top 3 quarterbacks in this draft, for whatever it's worth, and this is set in stone, is Lawrence, Fields, Wilson. That is lock, stock, and barrel. Write it in ink. All in all, I just don't see Fields duplicating what he did in the Sugar Bowl against a much better Crimson Tide defense. I think this is going to be a really good game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be close all throughout, but I think Alabama is the better team. Roll Tide, roll. New York Islanders season preview comes your way this evening. Thank God they re-signed Matthew Barzal. I'll get more into that on that show. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying that you give 100% in the first half of the game. And if that isn't enough, in the second half, you give what's left.